You've spent your entire life believing that this I that thinks, suffers, and struggles is the real you. But what if this I is just a thought, with no real substance? There exists a truth so simple, so direct, that the ego cannot survive it. If you've ever felt like a prisoner of your own mind, if you've ever laid awake at night being tortured by your own thoughts, if you've ever felt like your head is a battlefield where you always come out losing, this video will show you the way out that nobody taught you. A discovery so revolutionary that it can end decades of mental suffering in a matter of minutes. But I warn you, this truth will destroy everything you believe yourself to be. Think about the last time you got stuck ruminating on something. An argument, a mistake, a worry that wouldn't leave your head. Maybe it was last night. You lying in bed and suddenly your mind started that movie. What if I had said something different? Why do I always do this? Everyone must think I'm an idiot. And there you were, suffering, identifying with every thought as if it were part of you. I think this, I feel this way, I can't stop. But answer me this. Who was observing those thoughts? If you were able to notice that you were thinking, then you can't be the thought itself, can you? Nietzsche spent years fighting against his own mind. He knew there was something beyond compulsive thinking, something he called the will to power, not power over others, but power over oneself. Jung discovered that our greatest suffering comes from unconscious identification with mental contents that aren't ours. They're family inheritances, collective traumas, patterns we absorbed without realizing. And you inherited this identification. Since childhood, they taught you that you were your thoughts. Stop thinking nonsense. You're too negative. Control that head of yours, as if you were the head. But today you're going to discover that there has always existed a part of you that was never touched by any negative thought, by any wound, by any trauma. And that part is who you really are. Imagine the sky on a stormy afternoon. Clouds pass by, dark, heavy, threatening. They cover the sun, bring rain, thunder, seem eternal. A child looks up and thinks, the sky is sad today. But an adult knows the sky never gets sad. The sky never becomes a cloud. Your thoughts are the clouds. You are the sky. But since childhood, they taught you to identify with every cloud that passes. This anger is me. This sadness is me. This worry is me. You learn to say, I am anxious instead of, there is anxiety present. I am depressed instead of, there is a depressive energy circulating. The difference is revolutionary. One imprisons you, the other liberates you. Let me tell you something that happened to me as a child. I was about 8 years old, and my father came home after a bad day at work. I showed him a drawing I had made at school, all proud. He looked at it, sighed, and said, "It's not good. You can do better than that." In that moment, I didn't think my father is frustrated. I thought I am not good enough. And that thought became part of my identity for years. How many times has this happened to you? How many phrases, how many looks, how many silences did you transform into truths about who you are? But here's the secret. You never absorbed anything. You just identified with thoughts that were passing through. Close your eyes for a second. You don't need to meditate, just observe. Notice that thoughts are always arriving. What will he say now? Does this make sense? I have to remember to do that later. Now tell me, who is perceiving these thoughts? It can't be the thoughts themselves, or it would be like an eye trying to see itself. There is something in you that is always present, always observing, always conscious. Something that was there when you were 5 years old watching cartoons, when you were 15 years old in love, when you had your first day at work. This conscious presence is you. The rest are just passing visitors. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, discovered something extraordinary. Even in the worst conditions, there is always a part of you that cannot be touched. He called it the last human freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude toward any situation. But how do you choose an attitude if you were your thoughts and emotions? Impossible. You can only choose because there is something in you that is beyond mental content. You know what the tragedy of modern life is? We spend decades trying to improve, control, organize our thoughts, when true freedom lies in realizing that you were never them. It's like trying to clean the movie screen thinking that will improve the film. The screen was always clean. The movie passes, the screen remains. Now I'm going to show you how this understanding literally changes everything in your life. Relationships. When someone criticizes you, instead of thinking I was rejected, you perceive there's a rejection pattern being activated. Suddenly you don't take it personally, not because you're repressing, but because you genuinely understand that it's not you. Family traumas. That internal voice of your father that says, you'll never make it. You stop fighting with it. You stop trying to convince it otherwise. You just recognize, it's my father's voice visiting my consciousness. And like any visit, it leaves on its own. Anxiety and depression. Instead of, I am anxious and going to war against anxiety, you observe, there is anxiety present. And when you stop resisting, it moves, transforms, dissolves naturally. It's like having a house with many visitors. Some pleasant, others not so much. But you never confuse the visitors with the homeowner. But there's an obstacle that will try to prevent you from living this freedom: the ego. The ego is like a parasite that needs your identification to survive. If you stop identifying with thoughts, the ego dies, and it knows this. That's why every time you start to disidentify, the ego will intensify the drama. It will bring the worst fears, the most painful memories, the most urgent worries. Look what could happen if you stop worrying. You need to solve this now. If you don't suffer about this, it means you don't care. Recognize these voices? It's the ego trying to keep you trapped in identification. I'll give you a practical exercise that changed my life. For an entire day, every time you catch your mind wandering, whisper softly, "Not me." Worry about money appears. Not me. Traffic anger arises. Not me. Sadness from a song. Not me. It's not repression. It's recognition. It's like saying to a cloud, "You can pass, I am the sky." And something magical will happen. You'll start to notice spaces of silence between thoughts. Moments of pure peace where there's no problem at all, where you simply exist. Those moments. Are you coming back home? Now comes the truth that the ego fears, the discovery that can end a lifetime of unnecessary suffering. You were never your thoughts. You are that which observes them. Let this penetrate deeply. Every wound you carry, every story you tell about yourself, every limitation you believe you have, they are just clouds passing through the sky of your consciousness. When you were a child and your father criticized you, it wasn't you being criticized. It was a thought of I am inadequate passing through your consciousness. When someone rejects you and you feel that pain in your chest, it's not you being rejected. It's a mental pattern of I am not worthy of love manifesting. When you feel lost in life, it's not you who is lost. It's just a story about being lost visiting your mind. Your true nature is beyond any wound, beyond any trauma, beyond any story you tell about yourself. Take a deep breath with me. Go ahead. Inhale. Exhale. Now, just observe. Watch thoughts arriving and leaving. It could be, this is nonsense, it's not working, I have to go shopping later. The content doesn't matter, just observe, like someone watching clouds in the sky on a summer day. Notice? There's something in you that has never changed, something that was present when you were 5 years old discovering the world, when you were 15 years old dreaming about the future, when you had your first love, your first disappointment. This conscious presence that has always been here is who you really are. And consciousness. Consciousness cannot be hurt, cannot be rejected, cannot be broken. You can have experiences of pain, but you are not the pain. You can have experiences of fear, but you are not the fear. You can have experiences of loneliness, but you are not the loneliness. You are the space where all of this happens. And space always remains untouched. A few years ago, I went through one of the worst phases of my life. I lost my job, ended a long relationship, my mother got sick. I was devastated. One night, sitting on the floor of my room crying, I had this realization: who is perceiving that I am suffering? And suddenly, like a light turning on, I understood. There was something in me that was witnessing all that suffering, but was not suffering. It was like discovering that you had always been free but had forgotten. In that moment, the problems were still there. But something fundamental had changed. I had stopped identifying myself with them, and when you stop identifying with problems, they lose their power over you. Now, how do you live this truth day to day? How do you get out of identification when all of society forces you to identify? First, understand that this is a process, not an event. You're not going to wake up enlightened tomorrow, but every moment of awareness counts. Second, be gentle with the process. When you catch yourself identified with some thought, don't judge yourself. Just observe. I identified again, and return to awareness. Third, use difficult moments as reminders. The more intense the emotion, the greater the opportunity to practice detachment. Intense pain means you are very identified with something that is not you. When your boss humiliates you in front of others, instead of carrying that humiliation as part of your identity, you'll recognize, there's humiliation happening, but I am bigger than this experience. When you look in the mirror and criticize your body, instead of identifying with the criticism, you'll observe, the internal judge is active today. Interesting. When longing for someone who's gone tightens your chest, instead of being taken by the longing, you'll witness, there's love expressing itself as longing. How beautiful. What impresses me most is how this practice heals relationships. When you stop taking everything personally, people start to feel safe around you, because they perceive that you won't make drama about everything. When someone is nervous and takes it out on you, instead of retaliating or closing up, you recognize, this person is suffering. It has nothing to do with me. You become a space of peace where others can simply be. All the great masters of humanity discovered this. Buddha called it detachment. Jesus spoke of being in the world, but not of the world. The Sufis spoke of the death of the ego. They all pointed to the same truth. You are much greater than any content of your experience. If you've made it this far, something is already changing in you. Because the truth you just heard, it's not just information, it's recognition. You always knew this deep down. You always knew there was something in you that couldn't be broken, couldn't be diminished, couldn't be destroyed. You had just forgotten. When you start living from this perspective, the problems that seem like insurmountable mountains begin to dissolve. Not because you're running away from them, but because you understand they were never truly yours. That toxic relationship that destroys you, suddenly you realize it's not you being destroyed, it's just mental patterns asking for attention. That anxiety about the future, you recognize it as energy moving through you, not as part of your identity. The saints always knew this. Problems only have power over you as long as you believe they are yours. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your story. You are pure consciousness observing the experience. And that can never be hurt. And when you start living from this truth, you'll discover a freedom you didn't even know existed. A freedom that was always yours. Welcome back home.